Tough calls in week 14. Your questions at fantasyfootball@cbsi.com and Apple Podcast Review. The Fantasy Cops are back, and we've got a game to recap, a Tuesday night game to recap. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's the Wednesday edition of Fantasy Football Today. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, Heath Cummings. Heath is back. We missed you on Sunday. Heath, how you feeling?
I'm feeling much better. I appreciate it. I just, the playoffs coming up. This week didn't mean much to me, so I was able to rest up and get ready for the playoffs, and I'll be a full go in practice this week.
Good. Dave, good morning.
What's so good about it?
Lamar Jackson, what a great night that was. Zeke looked great.
Yeah, who cares?
Robin scored.
Who cares?
What are you talking? What's so upset? What are you so upset about?
15 leagues, Adam. I sunk my heart and soul into 15 leagues this year. Put my best foot forward in, well, I didn't put my best foot forward in all 15 of them, but I'm in the playoffs in just 6 of 15 leagues. The silver lining is that most of the leagues that I played in that were important, and if you have a cash register sound, you can make that noise right now. Those are the ones I made the playoffs in, plus the fishbowl. So I maybe I should be happy because I've got the chance to, win a lot of important dollars. But I still would have liked a higher percentage. I had a lot of 7 and 6 and 6 and 7 teams, man.
Me too.
It kind of stinks to play until the end, and then you miss it by you finished 7th, you finished 8th, you don't make the cut, and then you kick televisions and yell at children.
Well, congratulations to both of you for advancing in the wild card round of the Scott Fishbowl. Adam by a point and a half.
Point and a half.
Yeah. Marquise Brown.
Yes. Outstanding work.
I was very.
I think almost every single CBS personality advanced. Jamie and Chris and I all had buys.
I believe Chris Trapasso did too.
Our former friend Ben Gretsch had a buy. Still has CBS by his name in the fishbowl, so we're going to claim him. I think Will Brinson finished 1,440th out of 1,444 teams.
I'm not sure Will Brinson set any lineups this year. That's my theory. Because
that's sad if he didn't.
It's not in every league, but I think he just kind of stopped setting lineups. I think
he almost cost me a playoff spot in the FFT league by starting Will Fuller against Adam. Thankfully, Adam had Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Kyle Rudolph, and so I still made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he almost caught the funniest thing. He started Ryan Fitzpatrick in our YOLO Dynasty League, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
That league was named the YOLO Dynasty League for Nick Costos, who wanted us to start the league. Nick lost to Will Brinson and lost his playoff spot when Will didn't start a quarterback.
Wait a minute. So Will beat him without a quarterback.
Will beat him and advance to the next round of the playoffs. I believe you're playing.
I play him, and yes, and maybe I want revenge. He was my last loss in that league, dude. For as unhappy as I am about my poor percentage of making the playoffs this year, I'm so happy I made the playoffs in that dynasty league because I thought I was rebuilding for another year, and it turned out that all the moves I made were good and worth it.
And I don't think my percentage was. I think I made it in 8 of 17 or something. It sucked as well.
Yeah.
So. And I did the opposite of you. My best teams, I think the Scott Fishbowl and the Fantasy Telethon League, are the leagues where I'm playing for pride.
Got it.
Okay, well, I just want to wrap it up by telling everybody who Will Brinson started in the 2-quarterback league this week. He did start Sam Darnold. He also started Teddy Bridgewater, who was on a bye, Rex Burkhead, who's on IR, Nick Chubb, CeeDee Lamb, Kenny Golladay, Odell Beckham, Mo Alley Cox, Anthony Miller, and the Cowboys DST. So that was a good call on the Cowboys DST. Dave's team in that league was so good. He missed the playoffs. He was the 7th seed. He has Lamar Jackson. He's got Taysom Hill in his lineup right now.
At one point, I
Aaron
traded
Jones.
TJ Hawkinson for Taysom Hill in a desperation move before Drew Brees was hurt.
Yeah, you have Travis Kelce, you have Lockett, Stephon Diggs. I'm sorry, you have Deontay.
I have so many teams that are like this.
I'm sorry you didn't make the playoffs because you drafted a hell of a team. And,
that's not the only league. There's 2 other leagues where I've just got heartbreaking stories to tell.
I get to tell my heartbreaking story. I had a team with keepers of Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Michael Thomas, and Chris Godwin.
Oh, that's bad.
Those were my 4 keepers. It is my longest running league with all my friends from high school. There are no other fantasy football experts in that league, and I went 5-8 and missed the playoffs with Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Chris Godwin, and Michael Thomas. And I had Justin Herbert. Sorry.
No, that stinks. I've been doing a lot of reflecting because I just thought about my draft strategies, and I really feel comfortable with what I did. You know, I had 4 teams with Barkley and McCaffrey. That didn't help.
We got both those guys on the teams.
Those were great drafts.
2 Barkley teams, 2 McCaffrey teams. But what did I say? I mean, my draft strategy was running backs, typically 2 running backs in the first 2 rounds, then pound wide receiver rounds 3 through 5, 3 through 6, and then grab Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson. But those were the 2.
Yep.
And I feel like I was kind of weak at tight end, but so were 10 other teams in my league. So I feel like my strategies were pretty good, just a little bit of bad luck, a lot of 6 and 7, a lot of 7 and 6. Right in that range.
But that's going to be a lot of people. That's going to be the majority of people. The leagues were the redraft leagues where I had a great year and coasted the playoffs. I was either loaded at running back or I had James Robinson. It felt like it was one of those 2 things where just I hammered running back like I always do in the draft, and I hit, and or James Robinson was on my team because I took him with a late pick or I picked him up off the waiver wire. There's one more thing that I want to add. Shraggy B posted something on social about name your biggest draft day regret, something like that. And just loads and loads of people, or maybe it wasn't draft day, biggest regret from the season. I'm sorry. Loads of people saying, oh, I dropped Justin Jefferson too early, or I cut James Robinson. There were people that actually did that. I think one of the things that we have to learn moving into 2021 is everybody you draft, you've got to give at least 3 weeks to. Got to be a little bit more patient with these guys so that you don't drop Justin Jefferson before Justin Jefferson becomes a thing. And hopefully there's a regular training camp and a regular preseason next year so we can evaluate these guys a little bit better rather than going off of film and press clippings, stuff like that. We need a little bit more work done, and hopefully the preseason will give us that in 2021.
I think it was a big surprise that the rookie wide receivers did this well, considering the circumstances and not having a preseason, all that. And the fact that rookie wide receivers typically don't do this well. This has been an unbelievable rookie wide receiver class, and I hope he had some.
Like you can make a pretty good argument the rookie wide receivers were better than the rookie running backs.
I think it's absolutely true. I think the last
James Robinson is the best rookie, but besides that,
the last 4 weeks might change that because you're getting a little hopeful for Jonathan Taylor. You're getting a little hopeful for J.K. Dobbins. We'll talk about that right now. The running back split wasn't great there. DeAndre Swift, if he can come back, maybe he can take off. Cam Akers, maybe it's going to be, better late than never. But definitely the rookie wide receivers have paid off more than the running backs. Okay, Baltimore 34, Dallas 17. We're also going to preview Thursday Night Football. Like I said, we got those tough calls in the fantasy cops. So let's get going here. Baltimore 34, Dallas 17. All right, are we feeling like Zeke is back, like Lamar Jackson is back, like J.K. Dobbins is becoming a must start? That one's going to be a tougher sell. Cooper, you can't really sit him. He found a way. He got that late touchdown, but he had 9 targets. So, yeah, Dave, let's start with the Cowboys. Is Zeke back? Do you have full confidence in him now at Cincinnati? Beautiful matchup.
I would absolutely start him this week against Cincinnati because it's Cincinnati. But when the matchups get tougher for him, I will be nervous again. I thought he looked great, and I thought the offensive line at times blocking for him did a very good job against a very good Ravens defense. Yeah. So using him as a number 2 running back, I think that's the happy medium right now. And 4 catches is also exciting. I hope that keeps up with Dalton under center.
All right, J.K. Dobbins, Heath. Did he do enough to gain your confidence here? 11 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown. Mark Ingram had 6 carries. Gus Edwards had 7 carries. Edwards had a great game, 101 yards. So that's 11 carries for Dobbins and 13 for the other 2. Not great.
Yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with J.K. Dobbins. As has been the case all season long, J.K. Dobbins is flipping amazing and arguably the most efficient running back in football, and some of that has to do with Lamar Jackson. But the fact that Lamar Jackson had more carries than him, Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards combined for more carries than him, I had J.K. Dobbins ranked higher when we released our rankings yesterday than I will when I update them today. It's weird to say a guy averaged nearly 7 yards per attempt, and it was a negative, but it was a negative. We had hopes, And there were indications before he went on the COVID list that he was taking over this backfield.
Yes.
That was not what we saw last night at all.
Also, yes. He led them in playing time. He had 38% of the snaps. Gus had 33% of the snaps. Ingram had 20% of the snaps. I think if you started Dobbins, you got really lucky. And I hate it. I really thought that he would just pick up where he left off before he got ill, before he missed a game. I think he throwing out the game against the Steelers made sense, but that's not how the Ravens saw it. They went right back to their three-headed machine. And it's going to be tougher to start him as a number one guy, but he's still going to make the cut as a number two guy.
He had one carry in the first quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's weird.
I'm not sure he's going to be in my top 24. Like, I have a league where I'm going to have to choose between him and Kareem Hunt.
That's exactly where I was going to ask you.
And the other one that we'll get to later in the week, I'm sure, Giovanni Bernard against this Cowboys defense.
Well, I was thinking it might be Joe Mixon. I don't know if I could start Gio over anyone. He's been so bad, but
yeah, but this Dallas defense is,
they're the worst.
I've got to pull them from my top 12 DSTs. They can't be there.
It's a good point. I mean, it's a great matchup, but we're hoping Mixon's got a chance to play this week. So yeah, that's in the tough call section, but you want to talk about it right now? You're going to go with Dobbins at the Browns Monday night, or are you going to go with the starting running back for the Bengals against the Cowboys?
I don't want to decide that right now.
Okay. All right. No, I get it. And then final questions here. CeeDee Lamb or Marquise Brown rest of season?
I feel safer with Lamb in PPR. So if that's the format, I'll say him. Non-PPR, I will take my chances with Hollywood.
I will take Lamb in both. He's been pretty consistently around a 20% target share with Andy Dalton, and Dalton's been pretty consistently 35 to 40 pass attempts. So I feel much more confident with Lamb.
I did say by the catches with Lamb, though, because his yards in 5 games with
Dalton, been bad. Right. Well, he's just the short area guy. He's almost like a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, he's less than 50 yards in 4 or 5 games with Andy Dalton. Is he droppable? Let's say people are running waivers tonight. Is Lamb droppable?
I mean, Marquise Brown was less than 50 yards last night and has one game over 50 yards since week 6.
I'm not making it's fine. Separate question here. I'm not disagreeing with you about
right. You could ask the same question for both of these receivers.
I'm not dropping Lamb after he just got 9 targets when he faces the Bengals this week.
Yeah, you'd prefer to hang on him. There are other receivers that I can think of that we talked about on Tuesday's show that I would kick to the curb before CeeDee Lamb.
I have a claim in one league for Ty Johnson to drop CeeDee Lamb.
And I bet you're good at receiver elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to Debo over him.
And this is the question you have to ask yourself with anybody that you're thinking about dropping. What is the likelihood that you're going to start this player? And if that likelihood is low, you drop him. Now, if you could also ask, well, what's the likelihood that someone else in my league could pick this player up? Whatever you think that answer is, it's not going to be as high as it was a week ago because half your league's been eliminated, assuming your playoffs are underway.
Is that a non-PPR league, Adam?
No, it's a PPR league.
I get it. You've got great receivers, right? And if you've got great receivers and you know you're never going to start CeeDee Lamb, why are you carrying CeeDee Lamb?
Well, I'm just saying I would rather flex CeeDee Lamb in full PPR than I would Ty Johnson this week.
Yeah, I'm not starting either of them, but I'd rather have a little running back depth.
Exactly, that's what you want to have. This time of year.
And
by the way, Ty Johnson did not look terrible.
I might reconsider because I don't know how long Frank Gore is going to be out. We have to see. We'll see the practice report today. I might reconsider it. Maybe I'll try to drop somebody else. But okay. Anyway, that's it for that game. Keep in mind for Marquise Brown, it's 2 games in a row with 8 targets. That's really encouraging. Mark Andrews did miss both of those games. Willie Snead did miss both of those games. So you don't know what the targets are going to be like going forward. But it's 2 games in a row with a touchdown. Unfortunately, only 39 yards last night, but 8 targets.
Lamar Jackson was excited to connect with him for that score.
Oh, can we?
You could tell that.
I can't move on without talking about Lamar Jackson, Dave. So
we have to. He was outstanding, but it was against Dallas. I'd love it. Look, you're going to start him anyway this week against Cleveland off the strength of this game and what you know his potential is. He's hitting his upside, or he did hit his upside. If he can do it again against Cleveland, then I think you'll feel very confident starting him the rest of the way. Definitely a top 12 quarterback going into next week.
I've got him as a top 12 quarterback for sure, but I think there are situations like I think I'd go back to Ryan Tannehill over him this week. And there's another hill that I'm willing to die in. Taysom Hill.
Man, you're not letting anybody come back from injury. Can we get Drew Brees and Joe Mixon back this week, please?
Bring them back. Let's find out what happens in practice today.
Yeah, it's possible. I thought Sean Payton said there was no timetable for Drew Brees' return.
Yeah, well, Drew Brees is trying to come back this week, but let's assume it's Taysom Hill for now. Okay. Yeah, only 17 pass attempts for Lamar Jackson. So
yeah, but 13 rushes.
Yeah, it's just you just wonder how much the Cowboys boosted the perceived values of these players. But yeah, Jacob Gibbs has a great stat on Lamar Jackson. You will hear that tomorrow. If you have any questions, you can ask us for our mailbag show on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review and ask us your questions. We got that Saturday episode dedicated to your Apple Podcast questions and some of your emails. And Parlay Pick'em. It's a great fun contest on CBSSports.com. CBSSports.com/parlay. Contest is open from Tuesday through Sunday. Pick your best 5-team parlay against the spread. We're giving away $1,000 guaranteed dollars every week. Odds are provided by William Hill Sportsbook. And again, go to CBSSports.com/parlay. News and notes. Antonio Gibson's got a painful turf toe injury, may knock him out this week, according to Ian Rappaport, and they're at San Francisco. So
the funniest sounding serious injury in pro football.
Turf toe?
Turf toe.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, who's doing that game? Daryl Johnson, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying that that could affect him the rest of the season.
Yeah.
He diagnosed it as turf toe immediately and said that could really hinder Antonio Gibson. Jalen Hurts is going to start for the Eagles. Where are you guys going to rank him?
Top 24, but probably closer to 24 than anything else. There's a chance. There's a chance with him. He's not a total train wreck of a quarterback. His mobility will help Philadelphia, but he's a step down in accuracy from Carson Wentz, so there will be some off-target throws. His receivers were dropping passes. It was really Fulgham who was dropping passes when he came in last week against the Packers. I wish it was an easier matchup. I wish it wasn't New Orleans that he was going up against. If it was, Cowboys, for example, I would be very, very bullish on Jalen Hurts in that situation. But given the tough matchup, it's a week to kind of watch Jalen Hurts and see what he does.
Okay, Robert Spillane for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to miss some time. It's another linebacker they're losing. If you're looking at IDP leagues, Avery Williamson replaced him, and he had a pretty solid game. So that's a guy that could step up, get some tackles for you.
Can we go back to Hurts for a second?
Sure.
If you're in a league that I doubt he's out there in a 2-quarterback league, but if he is, obviously pick him up. Same thing in Superflex. And if he has a decent week against New Orleans, he's got Arizona and Dallas in week 16. You could stash him and see what happens. And the other thing that I would mention about the Steelers defense is they've lost Bud Dupree. He was one of their best pass rushers. Now they lost Robert Spillane. Joe Hayden could be hurt. That defense is starting to fall apart here toward the end.
Yeah, and that's good news for Josh Allen, of course.
Yes.
But James Conner and Mike Pouncey could be back this week, and they desperately need their running game to get going, so that would be good. Cleveland right guard Wyatt Teller is on the reserve COVID list.
That's big.
Yep.
He's been great.
Denver cornerback A.J. Boye is facing a PED suspension. They're already without Bryce Callahan, so they're going to be thin at corner. Chris Godwin had finger surgery. Heath, do we expect Chris Godwin to play at this point?
Currently, we expect Chris Godwin to play. Hopefully.
Okay. A.J. Green likely going to leave Cincinnati next season, according to The Athletic. And Larry Fitzgerald is off the reserve COVID list. And, hey, maybe Larry Fitzgerald has just been something we haven't talked about with Kyler Murray. You know, is he great? No. But is he a reliable slot target? Yes. And maybe that could help Kyler Murray this week at the Giants. Upcoming schedule alert. Hey, if you have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans or Antonio Brown, here is where the upcoming opponents for Tampa Bay rank against wide receivers. Minnesota is 30th. Atlanta is 29th. Detroit is 27th. And then in week 17, Atlanta again, they're 29th. So that's
beautiful.
Good enough. Tough calls for week 14. Let's start with a couple of quarterbacks. Are they tough calls? Russell Wilson against the Jets and Kyler Murray at the Giants. Heath, are they tough calls?
For me, at least, Russell Wilson is not a tough call. Ryan Tannehill Kyler Murray really only a tough call if I also have Ryan Tannehill or Tom Brady on my roster. There's not anybody available on the waiver wire that I'm starting over Kyler, but there's a possibility that you could have one of those two as a backup, and then you might start them. I suppose it's possible you picked up Justin Herbert and you've been juggling those two all year. You could possibly, then it would be a tough call.
You could have Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, I would start Kyler over Taysom Hill, but that is somewhat of a tough call.
I've got Taysom over Kyler. I'm nervous. He's a low end starter and he might fall out of my top 12. I know it's crazy to say I'm nervous about him because he threw 3 touchdowns last week, but one of them was kind of fluky.
Oh my gosh, he got
and he's not running as much. And this offense just has changed again, and it's not for the better.
Well, yeah, he's not running. And then I want to talk about the matchup. I really didn't think that this was a tough matchup. You know, the Giants went into last week. They were our 4th, 5th best, something like that against quarterbacks. But they had just played so many bad quarterbacks. And then they go and they do a great job against Russell Wilson, who threw a ton of passes and scored 16 fantasy points. They don't give up big plays. That's the thing about the Giants. They give up among the fewest big pass plays, 4th fewest pass plays of 20+ yards, 3 run plays this year of, what is it, of 20+ yards? No. 3rd fewest run plays of 20+ yards. I don't know, something like that. That's what they do. They don't give up big plays. So it's kind of a big play offense when Kyler Murray's right. Is this a tough matchup? Is that part of the consideration here?
Yes, it's definitely a tough matchup. And the biggest play that they had last week was the deep touchdown to Dan Arnold, which was the fluke that I was kind of talking about. We don't really see them throwing 59 yards to their tight end very often. We don't see them throwing their tight end often at all. And their next biggest play was Kenyon Drake had a run for 27 yards. The next biggest play, this is their 3rd most explosive play last week against the Rams, was Chase Edmonds up the middle for 13 yards. Wow. Kyler isn't throwing deep anymore. So those big explosive plays that the Giants aren't giving up, not a big deal because Kyler and the Cardinals aren't trying a lot of those explosive plays. I think the more I think about it, the more I don't like Kyler. Like an easy guy to get away from in DFS. And I would at least like to see what my other options are at quarterback before cementing him in my lineup.
Yeah. What about Phillip Rivers?
They're very close because Rivers has the Raiders. The one thing that worries me about Rivers is that the Colts might be starting a 3rd stringer at left tackle.
And they lost their right tackle. So.
Well, you're talking about LaRaven Clark?
Yeah.
Clark was playing left tackle.
Oh, he moved over to left tackle.
He moved over to left tackle when Costanzo got hurt. So yes, there are some issues at both tackle spots.
Both of those guys are out, right? They're. We
don't know for sure on Costanzo being out, but if he plays, he's definitely not going to be at 100%. He's got an MCL injury.
All right, let's go back to Russell Wilson because last year, I don't know if you guys remember, he was the number 1 I'm pretty sure he was the number 1 quarterback through 9 games. He had 22 touchdowns, 1 interception, 9.9 yards per attempt, 68% completion rate. His last 7 games really faded. 9 touchdowns in 7 games, 4 interceptions, 63% completion rate, and his yards per attempt went down from 9.9 in his first 9 games to 7.2 in his last 7 games. And it coincided with Tyler Lockett getting hurt. Didn't miss any time, but he got hurt, and Lockett didn't really do much down the stretch. And guess who hasn't really done much for a while now? I mean, Wilson's been great in some of these bad Lockett games or disappointing Lockett games. But the Jets are horrible. They give up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They get torched by every great quarterback they face, and they face a lot of them. But Wilson, again, it's not just like he's throwing less. His stats are worse. His interceptions have been up. His yards per attempt, his completion rate, they're lower than they were in the last 4 games when he started to struggle.
I think there are a lot of tough decisions this week. I don't actually believe anyone's sitting Russell Wilson against the Jets. Like, you can give me all the numbers about what he did in the second half last year, what he's done in the last month. Russell Wilson is playing the Jets,
who just fired their defensive coordinator.
And you're in a win or go home week 14.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone in the universe, even the world's biggest Jets fan, who in the world could that be, is sitting Russell Wilson in the first week of the fantasy playoffs against the Jets. Yeah. It's the Jets.
But no, the world's biggest Jets fan would definitely start everyone against the Jets and hope for huge success. Okay, fine. So we'll move on from Russell Wilson. How about Kenyon Drake? Now, weeks ago, I thought, that's a bad playoff matchup. Giants good against the run. He doesn't catch the ball, but he's been more involved in the passing game, and he's on fire, and he's scoring the touchdowns that Kyler Murray has. And Kyler Murray doesn't have a rushing touchdown in his last 3 or 4 games, and Kenyon Drake has 4
gotten the job done
in his last 3 games. So, yeah, look, as much as I want to praise the Giants, they're not the Bucs, they're not the Saints. They're giving up 4.24 yards per carry. They stink. They have give up the most receiving yards per game to running backs. So yeah, what do you think? Is Kenyon Drake a tough call for you guys?
I'm starting him.
Number 2 running back, not a tough call. He's been the lead guy for Arizona now for several weeks. The production has been there. The Giants have allowed 4 touchdowns to running backs over their last 4 games. I believe they're over 4 yards per carry to running backs in that span. And where the offense is struggling in Arizona throwing the ball, they're doing better running the ball. And Drake is doing a good job of getting targets and making use of them.
Like, he's faced the Rams, the Patriots, and the Seahawks the last 3 weeks, and has been a good fantasy starter all 3 weeks.
Yeah, he's scoring. I mean, that's the key. And that's what's killing Kyler Murray, and it's helping Kenyon Drake. Okay, so how about Ezekiel Elliott against the Bengals or Kenyon Drake at the Giants?
Zeke.
That was cool. How about Kenyon Drake or Raheem Mostert against Washington?
Drake.
I think I'm going to end up being on Drake there.
I have very like that. I guess is kind of a tough call as Raheem Mostert, but he is.
Yes,
he's probably not going to end up being in my top 24 running backs. He's right on the edge right now, but they like the past 2 weeks, they've really gone back to a 50-50 situation. Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson or whoever else they decided to give the ball to that week. It's back to Kyle Shanahan's running back, spin the wheel before the game starts and see who's going to get the touches.
Well, it's a little bit better than that because it's not 4 guys splitting a bunch of different ways. And Jerick McKinnon seems to be on the outs when it comes to getting the football in his hands. So he's just splitting with Jeff Wilson. But I like that Drake is getting catches. That gives him more opportunities. That's something that we're not really expecting with Mostert. And
Okay.
it's a tougher matchup for Mostert.
Last one before we move on here is Kenyon Drake in PPR or JD McKissick, assuming Antonio Gibson is out.
McKissick.
Get it?
Oh, you're kissing. Oh, I love it. I would love it. Okay. All right.
Sorry to be
move on.
NSFW here.
Talk about some more players. After we talk about Butcher Box, not a tough call, people. This is the most delicious meat. It is so damn good. And, there's a lot more about Butcher Box that you're going to really like. But let me give you the offer first. You can get bacon for life. Bacon for life. Even I would be interested in that because bacon is absolutely delicious. Bacon for life. You want that, Dave?
Yes.
Bacon
yes,
for
please.
life. Butcherbox.com/FFT. A package of free bacon in every box for the life of your subscription when you go to butcherbox.com/FFT. There have been some great promotions, but bacon for life is basically the coolest thing I have said in 11 years of hosting this podcast. And when it comes to meat, quality matters. There's more to it than texture and taste. You're talking about humanely raised meat. That is important, okay? It's important for the environment, and it's important for these animals, and it's important for what you're going to eat. When I've gotten Butcher Box, I think, look, everybody loves red meat and bacon and all that stuff, but I'm just going to tell you that the chicken was the best chicken I've had. The best chicken I've ever bought. Okay, maybe I've gone to some restaurant and they've made some amazing, I don't remember. But in terms of the chicken I buy chicken, a lot of it every week. I've never had chicken better than what I got from Butcher Box. You can't find this kind of stuff in the grocery store. 100% grass-fed finished beef, free-range organic chicken, heritage breed pork, wild-caught salmon. You cannot find this. And when you do find it, it's expensive. But ButcherBox does not make it expensive. It's very affordable. Go to butcherbox.com/FFT. You can customize your box that you get, or you can just go with one of their options. But it's really great. It's one less trip to the grocery store. It's a better, more affordable selection, and it's a ton of food. That's the other thing. No antibiotics, no added hormones, 9 to 11 pounds of meat. That's enough for 24 individual meals in every box that you get. And it's shipped frozen and vacuum sealed all the way to your front door. You're just going to absolutely love it. It's a no-brainer. The best meat shipped right to your door. Stop going to the grocery store. Start getting Butcher Box. Butcherbox.com/FFT. Free bacon, baby. All right. Are these guys tough calls? Cooper Kupp against the Patriots? Devontae Parker against the Chiefs?
Parker isn't a tough call. I think if Tua's starting, I know that I can't feel great about using him. Kupp is a tougher call, but the upside that he carries, especially in PPR leagues, makes him pretty much a guy you're going to start anyway.
I think they're both tough calls. I've got them both right around 24 at wide receiver. Like they really struggle with them and someone like Jarvis Landry, or Juju Smith-Schuster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. And the Patriots defense just seems to be getting better and better. We're going to preview that game in a little bit, so I'll leave Kupp for then. Then the Chiefs give up the third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and we're not really sure how. I feel like good receivers usually do pretty well against the Chiefs.
Teams don't throw to their wide receivers very much against the Chiefs.
Who do they throw to?
I wonder, and I'm going to look this up, if teams just don't run as many. Like we talked about that with the Patriots and Justin Herbert last week, and we saw that really impact the Chargers offensively. I wonder if teams just don't run as many plays or don't. I mean, Jamie's talked about it. The Chiefs would really like for you to just run the ball against them, because if you're going to go 4 yards a pop against Patrick Mahomes, you're going to lose.
Yeah. They don't give up big plays. That's one thing I know. Spags is good at that. Unless they're playing the Raiders, they do not give up big plays.
They're not all the way down at third, but they are in the bottom half of the league in pass attempts against, which makes no sense since they've usually got a 2-score lead.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do. I think I'll wrap it up there with the tough calls. Would you guys start J.K. Dobbins over Cooper Kupp and Devontae Parker? And let's say it's a PPR league.
No,
I'm probably going to go Kupp, Dobbins, Parker.
I think I would go Parker, Kupp, Dobbins.
Wow, you're really into Devontae.
No.
You're just nervous about Dobbins.
I'm very nervous about Dobbins.
Parker's production with Tua has been pretty uninspiring, but he does look for him in the end zone. That's the good thing. It just doesn't always complete it to him in the end zone, but the yards have been very low. All right, New England at the Rams. Let's get to this one.
No.
Sorry, I hit a symbol there. Yeah, there you go. All right, stat of the game.
Man.
This is for Damian Harris. A running back has scored a rushing touchdown against the Rams in 5 straight games. That's pretty good. But
why did you say this is for
Newton.
Damian Harris? Sony Michel, James White.
Yeah. No, it might be for
Jacob Johnson.
All 5 of those running backs scored 7 to 10 non-PPR points, no more than 12 PPR points. So yes, they're giving up touchdowns. Jacob Gibbs laid it out pretty well with his stat. The Rams are not great as a short yardage defense. They're pretty great at, seems like, everything else right now. So I guess my question is, are you starting any Patriots? Long way of saying it. Are you starting any Patriots?
Not with a lot of confidence. No.
Damian Harris is right for me in that Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders category of running backs that I'd really rather not, but I might have to.
And the total here is pretty low, 44.5. The Rams are 5-point favorites, which is not good for Damian Harris. He's been a very good running back. He's like a number 3 running back this week?
That's where I'd put him.
Yeah.
Okay.
High end, like a good flex in non-PPR.
Okay. So Kareem Hunt or Damian Harris?
Hunt.
Hunt.
How about?
I feel like you can pencil Harris in for like 7 or 8 non-PPR points.
How about a struggling Chase Claypool or Damian Harris?
Claypool has more upside.
I would start Harris in non-PPR and Claypool in full PPR.
All right, Cam Newton or Jared Goff, who's a better option in this game?
Neither of them are in my top 18. So.
None of them are in my top 20. I've got Mike Glennon ranked ahead of both of them.
All right, well, that's bad. But Goff throws for a ton of yards every week. He's 6th in the NFL in yards, and he's, I think, 18th in touchdown passes. He's got a really low touchdown rate again.
Can I share the stat that I sent you yesterday, Adam?
I'll let Heath make his point, and then yes.
Okay.
I think the Patriots defense is good, and Goff threw for like 198 yards against the 49ers last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but but he's thrown for 300. He's thrown for 300 or more yards in 4 of his last 5 games.
That's true. But when he's played good defenses with bad offenses, like the 49ers twice, or the Bears, or the Giants, he's been a 200-yard quarterback.
Okay. We won't start him then. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, you and I have been on a journey to try and crack the code on Jared Goff all year. First, you more so than me, but I joined you as recently as yesterday.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, this journey sucks.
Yeah, there's no code.
Yeah, well, we found a couple of things. The road home splits obviously favor him on the road. He's got multiple touchdowns in 6 of 7 road games this year. I always hate using home versus road.
I don't buy it.
Okay.
So much better at home, so I just think it's a fluke.
And I noticed that he tends to have better fantasy numbers in games where his running backs also have, at least one running back has double-digit fantasy points. There's been 6 games where he's had 20-plus fantasy points. A running back has had 10-plus in 5 of the 6. So maybe he needs that run game to collect some numbers to help him do better. Maybe that means that the defense is veering against both the run and the pass against the Rams, and it makes it easier for Goff to connect. But the thing that I noticed, and I went back in our True Media database that we've got this year, man versus zone. He's great against zone coverage, 74%, 8.2 yards per attempt, a quarterback rating of 96.6, and against man coverage, 57.3 completion rate, 6.4 yards per attempt, a quarterback rating of 73.1. He actually has the same touchdown to interception ratio of 1-to-1 against man and zone, but he's clearly not as good of a passer against man than zone. And I would bet your bottom dollar that the Patriots would be using man a lot more than zone. They already play man the 5th most of any team in the NFL. But here is the cherry on top. The Patriots have allowed 11 fantasy points to Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert combined the last 2 weeks.
All right.
How the hell can you trust Jared Goff?
I won't waste time with Jared Goff then. But he's bad against man coverage. The Patriots play a lot of it. So what does that mean for Woods and Kupp? And we talked about Kupp.
Right. That's where you have to go with it is what does it mean for those two?
What does it mean for Woods?
Woods plays better versus zone, a lot better. Catch rate is 23% higher versus zone than man.
Are you going to actually sit him because he's been
I can't look at him.
And
I can't look at him as anything more than a low-end number 2 receiver, especially in non-PPR. And the same thing for Cooper Kupp in non-PPR, although his catch rate is only 9% different.
I would start Woods over Kupp.
Woods has 3 straight games with 11 or more targets, 7 or more catches, and 80 or more yards. You just don't know how many times they're going to throw in this game, because as Heath laid it out, Patriots do a great job of slowing you down, limiting your plays. And then all right. So who's the best flex? Cam Akers, Robert Woods, or Cooper Kupp?
Woods.
Kupp and PPR. I think I'll probably end up taking Kupp and non as well.
How do we feel about Cam Akers?
Good, not great. I don't believe that he is guaranteed to still have this type of workload. He had a ton of touches last week. I think it was 22. I don't know if he's definitely going to get that again. Darrell Henderson missed a quarter and a half with an injury, came back in and then had an excellent looking run. It was well blocked for a touchdown. I imagine he's still going to get some run. I imagine that Malcolm Brown will still take on 3rd downs. The nice thing about Cam Akers is that he's clearly their guy inside the 10. He had 9 touches inside the 10 last week. He scored on 1 of them.
He's had 3 games this season with more than 10 carries. He's not averaged 4 yards per carry in any of those games. And he does not have a game with more than 1 target. So you're facing a Patriots run defense that's giving up like 3.5 yards per carry lately. You've got a running back that in games where he has high usage, he averages about 3.5 yards per carry and does not have any involvement in the passing game. That seems like a bad combination.
You got to hope he scores again.
Yeah, I know. It's just like someone's going to do well for that. Are they just going to have a really bad game? They could. I mean, they could have a really bad game. The Patriots have been that good lately defensively. A month ago, this would look like a great matchup for Cam Akers. But last 4 games, I think you had it right. I think it's 3.5 yards per carry.
Yep.
Allowed.
That's over their last 5.
Over the last 5. All right. So Cam, who's the best running back in this game?
I'll probably still say Akers. I think he's got the most upside. But it's not a lot. It's upside for maybe 60 yards and a touch.
I've got Akers just barely. It's basically a coin flip.
If we know on Thursday Frank Gore's not practicing, he's doubtful. He's probably not going to play. Would you start Ty Johnson over Cam Akers?
And Damian Harris, yes.
You would start Ty Johnson? Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I don't think I'll get there with Akers.
All right. And I think that's it for this game. No tight ends in this game, right? No.
None that I'd feel confident in starting.
Feel good about the DSTs?
I think you're going to have to end up starting the Rams. It's not like the Patriots offense is a dynamo. Patriots DST probably will end up being close to my top 12. Let's call them a low end starter.
They're both right around 12 for me. I have the Rams currently higher, but they're right around 12.
Going to start them over the Cowboys?
Rams, yes. I'm going to start both of them over the Cowboys.
How about the Panthers against Denver?
Both of them.
I mean, the Rams might have the best defense in football, and the Patriots.
It's either them or the Saints.
Cam Newton's turnover prone. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even think about sitting them. Who would you have to sit them? Nobody that's available on waivers. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. There's not a waiver DST.
Well, that's what I was just looking at. The Rams have actually been a better matchup for opposing DSTs than the Patriots this year.
You mean the Patriots are scoring more points than the Rams?
No, I mean DSTs are scoring more against the Rams than they are against the Patriots.
But it's so recent.
I wonder if that's right. I wonder if that's weighted on the last 2 weeks, but that's what matters. That's what counts right now.
They're just playing tremendously. They were not a great defense earlier this year.
I'm not saying that you're not opposing defenses are scoring more fantasy points against Jared Goff than they are against Cam Newton.
Right. But I think the Rams defense is a lot better than the Patriots.
I don't know if I'm not saying that's wrong. I don't know currently with the way the Patriots playing if anybody's a lot better than them. I think the Rams are better.
Yeah. All right. It's a good point. Well, I am looking forward to this game. I can handle a nice low scoring game. Some good defense is playing. It's a Super Bowl rematch. Looking forward to seeing it. And it does not feel like we're getting any break from football. It's like every single night there is football, just about.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want it to become a regular thing. And it won't. But you don't want to oversaturate it. I mean, that was kind of an issue with Thursday Night Football for a while. Like, you don't want to oversaturate. It's just weird. Like, we just ended week 13 yesterday, and week 14 starts tomorrow. It's just strange. It's all, it's just strange. All right. You know what, guys? Let's hear from the fantasy cops. Let's do this. League disputes from Nicholas. This is the first one. 10-team redraft PPR league going on 8 years with some decent money involved. $100 buy-in.
Woohoo! That was in parentheses. I don't think you were supposed to say that part out loud.
You should have told me that. We had one.
Now the real cops are going to visit Nicholas and say, hey, have you been reporting this income? The IRS wants to talk to you.
We had one manager decide to bail on the league. He lost 5 straight and was so frustrated, he decided to cut some good players last week. DJ Chark, Ronald Jones, Zach Ertz. Not super egregious moves, but still. At first, he didn't even try to replace them. He had 4 empty bench spots. This caught the league's attention, and then he decided to replace them all with Bears players because he's a Bears fan. This didn't please the league, and we unanimously voted that the commissioner would undo this and add these players back on his roster. This was done, and this manager basically said, I don't care. I'm not playing next year. But due to a Week 13 miracle of a certain failing to put up almost record lows legitimately, he will now make the playoffs as the 6th seed. The league agreed not to lock his team, but there is now a debate whether we should allow him in the playoffs since he attempted to tank and refused to undo his actions when asked. His acts were intentional, but now there isn't much recourse. Any thoughts on a verdict for this?
This is the problem with a heavy-handed league approach when a player's not behaving well, he's in the playoffs. He's mostly in the playoffs because you guys didn't think it was fair that he dropped his players, which is fine. I'm not disagreeing with you. If you didn't want him to do that, that's fine. But you can't say, no, you can't drop your good players for Chicago Bears, Mr. Bears fan. You must keep these good players and then also say, oh, no, your good players won you games and put you in the playoffs. Now you're not allowed to, we're going to put the Bears back on your team. No, he's in the playoffs. If he wins the championship, you pay him the money and then you kick him out of the league.
Dave,
I mostly agree. You could at least say to him, look, you made the playoffs. Are you interested in running the team for the rest of the year? We will make it clear that if you go on one of these, rages where you're going to drop guys because you're unhappy.
He does not deserve to be in the playoffs. He cheated the league. He made a mockery of the league. He dropped his players.
Well, no, he does deserve to be in the playoffs because he's earned it. He's earned it based on the players that he drafted, the players who he started, and the points that he accumulated.
Let Adam finish. I want to see how he talks himself into a circle on this one.
Yeah, I guess that's already starting. He should get booted out of the playoffs. I think it's disgraceful what he did. Basically,
for sure.
What he did was egregious and deserves basically a suspension. Like you're suspended 4 games and you're not eligible for the playoffs, something like that. You can't suspend him, but I'm saying if it were real life, you would suspend him.
Well, so one answer I would accept
by making him ineligible.
I would accept this answer because my suggestion was to kick him out of the league at the end of the year. If you wanted to kick him out of the league right now, I think an important distinction is, has he paid? That's because if you kick him out of the league right now and don't let him participate in the playoffs, you are not getting that $100. No chance. And he has every right not to pay.
Well, that would be wouldn't be right.
No, yes, it would. If he's the 6th seed and you kicked him out and didn't give him a chance to win the league,
you never have the right to not pay.
Okay, Dave, you are in the YOLO playoffs.
I'm going to pay.
Right. What if I told you, Dave, you don't get to be in the playoffs anymore? I don't like the way you did this thing. You're out of the playoffs.
I'd like to know what I did wrong.
It does not matter.
Why? I didn't do anything
because I have no right to tell you that you have no chance to play for the prize. And if you have no chance to play for the prize, then you have no reason to pay.
But I also didn't do anything to cause you to react that way. I didn't drop my players. I didn't do anything egregious. I didn't.
You can't tell him he can't.
All right, that's separate subject.
I agree.
Let's wrap it up.
I agree with that part, but he doesn't have the right to not pay. People just don't. You don't do that when you're in a fantasy league.
If you take his team away from him, you do.
All right, let's wrap it up. You guys say he should be in the playoffs, and everybody.
Yeah, his team should be in the playoffs. I would offer him the chance to run the team. Any stupid crap that he does to put players on the waiver wire or whatever should be reversed immediately, and then he's permanently banned after the season.
I agree with the last part for sure. I would agree if you wanted to just kick him out of the league right now and set his lineup based on projections, and if he wins, donate the league money to charity. I'd be fine with that also.
Or just keep the money and make a bigger prize pool next year. Charity's nice. You could do a little bit of both, right?
Charity.
Some bucks to St. Jude's and some bucks for the 2021 season.
All right, this is from Cassidy. Oh, wait, I got to get the music. Sorry, Cassidy. Oh, yeah, Cassidy. The bylaws in my league state that all wins are forfeit until the league dues are paid. The number 1 team in my league has not paid up this year, despite 3 reminders. So do I go ahead and change the standings based on our rules? It will rock my league and totally upset the competitive environment. What do I do? Thanks for your help, Fantasy.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
You have bylaws for a reason, Cassidy. You should feel no remorse. But what I would do and I don't have this rule in any of my leagues. I haven't collected entry fees for any of my leagues. I will collect some of them in January. What I would do is I would send a private message to this fantasy manager, and I would say the playoffs start on Thursday. Today is Wednesday. If you have not paid by Thursday, I have to take your wins away. It's right here in the bylaw, and you will not be in the playoffs. And if he doesn't pay by Thursday, he's not in the playoffs.
And that this would be his 4th reminder?
Yeah. Very generous.
I think it's.
I agree. I think I agree 100% with Heath.
All right, last one. Now, this one here is a broad topic that we're getting a ton of questions about. So let's go ahead and read it and make a judgment. Eric from Queens. Dear Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael. I like Raphael the best. 3 teams in my keeper league are 4 and 8. We do reverse standings to set the draft order for next year. Worst team gets the number 1 pick, etc. And total points scored is the draft order tiebreaker. One of the 4 and 8 teams intentionally set an illegal lineup in order to not tally any points this week and guarantee himself the number 2 pick in next year's draft instead of 3 or 4. League members complained about league integrity, so I used commissioner powers to activate Myles Gaskin off his IR spot, and I played the Saints defense, which he intentionally benched, and then I gave him an active lineup. Was I right for activating Gaskins and playing the Saints D so his points would calculate for week 13?
Well done, Eric. You are the best fantasy football commissioner that I know of in New York.
I cannot dispute that. I wanted to, you did the right thing, Eric. I want to talk about this because a lot of people are saying, hey, we've got league members who are tanking on purpose. Is that okay? We've got league members who are losing as like the number 3 seed to make sure that this better team doesn't make the playoffs, or they're trying to help the number 6 seed to keep the number 7 seed out. This obviously happened last week. And my take is I don't love it, but as long as you have a legal lineup, you basically can do whatever you want.
Yep.
Right? Is that how we feel?
That's how we feel.
Yeah. Once you start going illegal lineup, not starting a defense and, that kind of stuff, that's against the rules. But you want to bench Patrick Mahomes for your backup quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who didn't even start. I guess it's okay. It's your decision to make. But that's basically how we feel. If it's a legal lineup, you can do whatever the heck you want. You've earned that right, I guess. It's not cool, but it's okay.
And the commissioner should have the manager make an attempt at a legal lineup before making it legal himself or herself.
All right, we got a little bit of show left. You got your questions via email and Apple Podcasts, and if we have time, we'll talk Dynasty quarterbacks, although I definitely wanted to get to that earlier in the show. Oh, well.
We can just do it right now.
Well, we got to take a quick break. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll see. We'll figure out what we're talking about. Fantasy football at cbsi.com. Here we go. From Aaron, 10-team, 3-receiver PPR league with a flex, so I have to sit one of these guys. Who am I sitting? Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Justin Jefferson, and Michael Thomas.
Wow.
Robinson, McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Jefferson, Thomas. Thomas Jefferson.
McLaurin.
Yeah, that's how I was going to say. Yeah. Okay, McLaurin.
I think I had Johnson the lowest of the 5 some.
Okay. From Richard.
I was up against sick with that.
I was up against the commissioner of my league that needed less than 3 points from Zach Moss on Monday night. He got the 3 points early, but then Moss fumbled and was benched. He lost by 0.2 of a point. I listen to the podcast all the time, and I'm in second place. Thanks for the great advice.
I just want to say that there's at least a small chance we're getting a stat correction on that, right? Zach Moss never actually had the football.
Right. Could go to Allen.
It was on the exchange.
Usually that goes to the quarterback.
It did go to Josh Allen.
Oh,
as of last night.
We don't know where this person plays his fantasy.
That's true. Richard,
So,
you might have to resend this email. Wow. All right, next email. Shine Dog from Washington. Hey, Sandler, Chappelle, Moyer, Ledger, and Stiller.
Those are some random dudes, but that's good.
Yeah, that's Adam, Dave, Jamie, Heath, and Ben. Lineup.
Oh,
yeah, Jamie Moyer. That's great. 12-team PPR. Start 2 running backs, PPR. Kamara, Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, J.K. Dobbins.
Jones and Kamara.
Yeah.
2 wide receivers, Kupp, Lockett, Evans.
Not Kupp.
Yep.
And a flex, Drake.
Ooh, full PPR. I might go Kupp over Lockett in full PPR.
Oh,
I'm flexing Drake.
Wait, okay.
Oh, I can flex Lockett.
You can flex Lockett, yeah.
Okay, so I'll start the 3 receivers with Kamara and Jones.
And Heath, you'll go Lockett, Evans, Drake?
Correct.
From Chris in New Jersey. Dear Mike, Max, Dustin, Will, Lucas, and Steve. I love Steve.
Steve's good. Stranger
Yes,
Things.
Pick 2 wide receivers in PPR. Antonio Brown, DJ Chark, Shark.
Shark.
Jay Shark. T. Higgins. Tyler Boyd.
Ooh.
Wow, what a pile.
Shark and Boyd.
I was going to say Brown and Higgins.
I feel like there's been a decent Ryan Finley, Tyler Boyd connection. So if Boyd, if it is Finley, that might help you. Pick a running back in PPR. Akers, Booker, Edmonds, Lindsey, Gore. Akers, Booker, Edmonds, Lindsey, Gore.
Oh man, this is Stranger Things.
I'm going back to Devontae Booker as long as Josh Jacobs is out over all of these guys.
Okay.
I can't. I'm going Cam Akers.
From Joe, pick a tight end. Ebron, Goddard, or Ertz.
Goddard.
I'm going Goddard, though I'm nervous about it.
He's less reliable with Hurts than with Wentz.
I think Jalen hurts his upside.
Yes, very good. But Hurts has has a 30% target share to tight end so far this season.
Marvin Jones or Allen Lazard?
Marv.
Yes.
DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, Zach Moss, Sony Michel, or Adrian Peterson?
Well, who's available?
Who's playing?
Yeah.
Not Sony Michel or Zach Moss.
Right. So if Mixon and Swift are out, it's Peterson. If either one of those two play, you'll start either one of them over Peterson. And if both of them are there, I think it's got to be Swift over Mixon. They both have great matchups.
Okay, Apple Podcast questions from NY2KB24. Dear Tony, Tony. Remember that song?
I remember.
No Loot. Oh, me. Myles Gaskin or Corey Davis?
I think I'm going to say Davis.
Really would be helpful to know the format here. But I would lean Davis in most formats.
You know that song, Heath? No Loot by Tony. A good one.
Doubtful.
Yeah, go ahead and listen to it. I think you'll like it.
I bet I don't.
I bet you do. From Beeville to DC. Now that I'm out of the playoffs, who should I be looking for on waivers to keep as a keeper for next year?
This is a good time to say that I don't think if you're not in the playoffs, if you're not in a true dynasty league, everybody can keep adding players forever. If it's a keeper league, I would suggest that no one added during the fantasy playoffs can be kept. And also no one eliminated from the playoffs should be adding players.
And do a double check to see if there are players who were on IR earlier in this year that are still available on the waiver wire. Cortland Sutton, for example, Odell Beckham. I'm sure that in a league like this, those guys are glued to bench spots anyway. I'm locked into the regular season. I haven't started thinking about possible players. I would like to know
the contract situations for Cole Beasley and John Brown, because I believe Gabriel Davis could be very good next year. But that's the only thing that comes to mind. And that's really more of a dynasty thing than a keeper thing. You know, I'm not sure you're like keeping Gabriel Davis with a last round pick or anything like that.
Beasley has 2 more years on his deal.
Is he cuttable though? I mean, is he expensive? I don't know.
No, they could cut him if they wanted to, but I would be stunned if they did that. John Brown also has 2 years left, and his deal is a little more flexible.
Okay.
They could potentially move on from a 30-year-old John Brown.
All right. Well, you know what, guys? Why don't we spend 5 minutes on Dynasty here? All right. Dynasty quarterback risers and fallers. You guys went with the rookies, which is not really what I was hoping for, but that's fine.
I've got others besides the rookies.
Just giving you some guidelines there. You know what? Okay, fine. Dave, Tua Tagovailoa is a riser for you.
In Dynasty, sure. He played. I actually thought he played good football in the second half last week. He's maybe starting to click a little bit. Not that I'm ready to start him in the fantasy playoffs, but maybe by the end of this year, we'll start seeing that guy that we saw at Alabama, and he could end up being a superstar in fantasy in 2021.
How about I just give you, because Justin Herbert's obviously the biggest riser, and I stole him as quickly as possible. He's a top 10 dynasty quarterback now, and he might even be a top 5 dynasty quarterback by the end of the season update. Josh Allen is a riser. Mm-hmm. He has made enormous progress as a passer. I think Aaron Rodgers, like, do you think back to the beginning of the year and what the perception of Aaron Rodgers was at his age and the way he'd played over the last 3 years? He's a riser. I think the likelihood that's probably enough risers.
Is Tannehill a riser?
Yes, he is, but
I mean, not like the other guys we're talking about, but
right.
Yeah. What about Paul Reiser?
Oh, great comedic actor.
He was in Stranger Things.
I know. He wasn't quite as funny there as he was,
Well, the followers are more interesting. Dave said Lamar Jackson is a dynasty follower. Heath said,
yeah, I sent that in before the game last night, but I can still make the case for Lamar.
Go ahead.
Well, think about what we thought of him this time last year. One of the 2 best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in fantasy. Think about how we thought of him before the season started. One of the 2 best quarterbacks in fantasy, if not the best quarterback in fantasy. And before the game against the Cowboys, think about what we were thinking of him. Maybe not a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. And for all the good that he did in that game against Dallas, he still missed some throws. And so I don't think in a dynasty league we're thinking about him as this
who's definitely passed him
mega piece.
Who's definitely passed Lamar Jackson?
Deshaun has definitely passed Lamar Jackson. I would rather have Deshaun. And
I might feel that way depending on who they hire and who their receivers are next year. Like they don't have
you can
any
say that.
receivers.
I think Josh Allen has passed him. And if I'm really thinking long term, I'm going to put Burrow ahead of him.
What about Herbert? I don't know how you take Burrow over Herbert.
Because I think Burrow is just an outstanding player. Hopefully this knee injury doesn't submarine his whole career.
My dynasty ranking still includes some value for the playoffs this year because that's obviously the most important thing is the next 3 weeks. But I don't even have a great deal of confidence that Joe Burrow is going to be 100% in September.
I'm thinking longer than September, though.
Well, yes, but he's not yet shown us. Like, I would say the reason I asked that question is, like, I think 2 weeks ago I would have definitely said Kyler Murray's definitely past Lamar Jackson. But he's not really been that much. He's not been a great passer. He just, if he runs 10 times a game, he's a top 2 quarterback.
I think a lot. I think Jackson, I mean, we saw it last night. He really does have some serious passing issues. He can overcome them.
Kyler does too, but I don't think they're as bad as Lamar's.
Kyler is they both have. I agree with that.
Josh Allen has serious passing issues, but he's overcome some of them, and he may continue to develop. Like I think the Deshaun Watson thing. The nice thing about him, is that he's a better passer than any of these guys we're talking about.
So good. He's probably the second, or I don't know, in terms of just a pure quarterback. Who are the best pure quarterbacks? Mahomes, Wilson, Watson, Rodgers right now. Breeze is still playing that well.
Those 4, I would say.
Yeah, Watson is so good. All right, let's talk about this. The last 3 seasons, here are the quarterbacks, unless I'm forgetting any. Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and Tua.
Don't you dare forget Gardner Minshew.
Okay, Gardner Minshew.
The Jaguars did.
Who are your top 4 from the last 3 seasons? So it's like we're looking at Allen, Jackson, Kyler, Herbert, Burrow. Those are probably 2.
I know who my top 4 are. I'm not sure what the order is.
Let's figure it out.
It's Lamar, Kyler, Allen, and Herbert are my top 4.
And I would probably replace Herbert with Burrow and make that my top 4. But I'm also just very, very bullish on Burrow.
Okay.
What I think is like interesting, the rest of those guys, who's the best? Or do we have any faith at all that any of the rest of those guys are going to be fantasy starters?
I have faith in Tua. I mean, I don't know if I have a lot, but I have a decent amount of faith in Tua. I certainly don't think you can count him out at this point. He's been fine.
No. Do you have any faith in Locke, Daniel Jones,
Locke.
Baker Mayfield?
Baker and Jones still have a chance.
You like them more than Drew Lock?
Yes,
For sure.
I think Drew Lock could get replaced in March.
Yeah, Locke.
It's so interesting.
More like a bust.
Like we've seen 10 games from Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen anywhere close to a full season.
Well,
we've seen so much from Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mayfield hasn't been that bad. I mean, he was bad last year, but when he hasn't had Freddie Kitchens, he's been pretty solid. And Jones
he was great his rookie year.
Yeah, and Jones is the best rusher of the three by far. So there's that. They're going to get him a wide receiver next year. It's going to help. The offensive line might actually end up being good.
They could end up with one of the best O-lines, right? They'll add another piece to that unit too.
The last 4 games of the season are big for him.
I would argue Daniel Jones' pass catchers are better than Baker Mayfield has right now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's true. But no, you know what? It's not really a strength for either of them, in my opinion. I mean, they're both kind of hindered, I think, by their pass catchers.
Well, compared to other quarterbacks, look at Justin Herbert's receivers. You would take those guys in a heartbeat over what they've got in Cleveland and New York.
Right. But like the best guy Drew Lock has this season has been Tim Patrick.
Yeah, Sutton will make him better. Let's not forget that. Sutton, Judy fan. They could, I don't know.
I would be more bullish on Locke if I was convinced that he would be their quarterback next year.
And all these guys, I don't know why we would think the Broncos might move away from Drew Lock, but the Giants wouldn't move away from Daniel Jones.
No way. Well, okay, because first of all, the Giants are not going to have a good enough draft pick. And they seem to really like Daniel Jones. And I think David Gettleman is not going to get fired unless they really just like screw up the last 4 games of the year. They could. I think there's going to be a lot of changes in Denver. I mean, they're just broken right now. The Giants, I think, like Daniel Jones a lot more than you do.
Do the Broncos and Giants have the same record?
But one of them's won 4 games in a row and is in first place. And you can see progress. This is how the Giants are looking at it. I'm telling, like, just based on all the fans and they are seeing progress. Daniel Jones hasn't turned the ball over in 3 straight starts. Like, they like him. You don't like him. They do. I think he's okay, but I think he has potential. You know, I don't know if Locke does. I think Jones could really turn things around. But I don't love him. I'm not trying to be a homer here, but he still has potential. He makes some great throws. They like him a lot more than you do. I'm just telling you. I think everybody.
I'm not saying, and like he was a top 12 dynasty quarterback for me coming into this year, but I expected he would improve as a passer, and he hasn't statistically.
He's been bad.
So. And Drew Lock's played a little more than half a season, so I just don't know about him as much. Well, it seems like we've decided on Drew Lock, and we're leaving things wide open for guys like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones.
Hosted by Adam Azer, brought to you by Butcher Box, bacon for life.
What are you saying? What's hosted by Adam Azer?
Giants talk.
That's absolutely not. We can't talk about Daniel Jones and a dynasty quarterback.
I like how you're shoving this whole conversation in at the end of the podcast.
God damn it. Goodbye. We're done now. Now I'm really angry. Now I feel like Clark Griswold. What is it? Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Kiss my ass. Goodbye, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.